"We're having the house appraised," my son announced, walking in with a woman holding a clipboard. I was baking cookies. He didn't knock. The appraiser started measuring my living room. I said, "Why are you appraising my house?" My son said, "Because we're buying it from you, below market value. It's better this way, you get cash now, we get the house, everyone wins." I hadn't agreed to sell. The appraiser was opening closets, taking photos. I said, "Stop." My son ignored me. "We're offering $200,000. The house is worth $500,000, but this way you avoid realtor fees." He was trying to steal $300,000 from me with paperwork. I said to the appraiser, "Leave my house." She looked at my son. He said, "Keep working." I pulled out my phone, called the police, and then. Before we continue, this fictionalized case study is based on documented cases of adult children attempting to defraud elderly parents through below-market property sales. According to the National Adult Protective Services Association, real estate and property fraud accounts for approximately $6.5 billion in annual losses to elderly Americans, with family members being perpetrators in nearly 60% of cases. This examines your legal right to refuse property sales, how equity theft schemes work, and how to protect yourself from family members attempting financial exploitation through real estate fraud. Now let me tell you my story. It was a Wednesday afternoon in Philadelphia, and I was in my kitchen doing what I did every Wednesday, baking chocolate chip cookies. I'm Eleanor Washington, 76 years old, retired postal worker, widow for 9 years. I live alone in the house my husband and I bought 42 years ago. The recipe was my grandmother's, passed down through 3 generations. I'd made these cookies hundreds of times, for bake sales when my children were in school, for church fundraisers, for holidays when the whole family gathered around my dining room table, for my grandchildren when they visited during summer breaks. Every Wednesday afternoon, I'd mix the dough from scratch. Real butter, never margarine, dark brown sugar that I packed tight into the measuring cup, pure vanilla extract, and semi-sweet chocolate chips, always Ghirardelli, because that's what my grandmother had used. The cookies were just starting to smell good, that perfect moment when the chocolate begins to melt and the butter gets that rich, nutty aroma, when I heard my front door open. I hadn't heard a knock. I turned around, hands covered in flour, wooden spoon in hand, and saw my son Michael walking into my house with a white woman I'd never seen before. She was carrying a professional-looking clipboard, one of those laser measuring devices that contractors use, and a high-end camera hanging around her neck. She was dressed in business casual, pressed khaki slacks and a navy blazer. "Michael, I didn't hear you knock." My son was 52 years old. Tall like his father had been, still handsome despite the gray creeping into his hair and temples. He was wearing expensive clothes, designer jeans that probably cost $200, a crisp button-down shirt, Italian leather shoes. "Hey, Mom." He was smiling, casual, like this was the most normal thing in the world. Like walking into someone's house unannounced with a stranger was perfectly acceptable. "This is Karen Stevens. She's here to appraise the house." I stared at him, my brain trying to process what he'd just said. A feeling of unease settled in my stomach like a stone. Appraise? Why would someone be appraising my house? Karen was already walking through my living room like she owned the place. She didn't introduce herself to me, didn't ask permission. Just pulled out that laser measuring device and started pointing it at my walls, making notes on her clipboard. I could hear it beeping, beep, 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 as she took measurements from one wall to another. "We're having the house appraised," Michael said matter-of-factly, like he was telling me about the weather. "It's time to move forward with the sale." I set down my spoon carefully on the counter, trying to keep my voice calm even though my heart was starting to race. "What sale?" "What are you talking about?" "The sale to me and Jennifer, Mom. We talked about this, remember?" "No, we absolutely did not talk about this. I would remember if we discussed selling my house." Karen had moved to my bookshelf now. She was photographing my books, my collection of Maya Angelou and Toni Morrison that I'd been building for 30 years. She photographed the wall where my late husband's certificates from the Postal Service hung in frames. She was photographing my wedding photos, my children's baby pictures, taking pictures of my life like it was inventory in a warehouse. "Excuse me," I said to her, my voice sharper now. "Why are you appraising my house?" Michael answered before she could open her mouth. His voice had that tone, the one he used when he was trying to be patient with someone he thought was being difficult. "Because we're buying it from you, Mom, below market value. It's better this way, you get cash now, we get the house, everyone wins." I felt my chest tighten. "I never agreed to sell my house. Mom, we've talked about this before, you're 76 years old. This house is way too big for you, you're here all alone. What if you fall? What if something happens? The money would be much better for you to have in the bank where you can actually use it." Karen was in my dining room now. I could see her through the doorway. She was measuring the dimensions of the room with that laser device, photographing my china cabinet, the one my mother had given me when I got married 54 years ago. She opened the cabinet doors and photographed the dishes inside. My mother's good china, the set she'd saved for years to buy. "Stop what you're doing," I said to her. She glanced at Michael, uncertain. "Keep working, Karen," he told her, not even looking at me. "Stop," I said louder, walking toward the dining room. Karen looked uncomfortable now, but she continued taking photos. Click, click, click. My dining room table, the one my husband and I had bought at an estate sale when we first moved in. My chandelier. The window treatments I'd saved for 3 months to buy. The framed photos of my grandchildren on the wall. Michael put his hand on my shoulder. It felt condescending, patronizing, like he was humoring a confused child who didn't understand what was happening. "Mom, just let her finish. This is standard procedure. She needs to document the entire house for the appraisal report." Standard procedure for what? I didn't hire her. "I don't want my house appraised. I'm not selling. We're offering you $200,000. Cash. The house is worth about $500,000 on the market right now, but this way you avoid all the realtor fees. That's 6%, which is $30,000 right there. You avoid closing costs, repairs, inspections, staging, all the hassle of listing it and having strangers walk through. Clean and simple. You sign the papers, we transfer the money to your account, and it's done." Easy, my mind was racing, doing math even as my heart pounded with a mixture of anger and fear. My house was worth $500,000. I knew that for certain because I'd had it professionally appraised 2 years ago when I was considering a reverse mortgage to supplement my retirement income. The appraiser then had valued it at $500,000, maybe more depending on market conditions. Michael was offering me $200,000. That was a $300,000 difference. Even with realtor fees of $30,000 and closing costs of maybe $15,000, I should net around $455,000 in a normal sale. He was offering me $200,000. That was a $255,000 loss for me, a $255,000 gain for him. "You're trying to steal $300,000 from me." Michael laughed. Actually laughed like I'd said something ridiculous and absurd. "Mom, don't be so dramatic. We're offering you $200,000. That's a lot of money. That's more than you made in 4 years of working at the post office. My house is worth $500,000. You want to buy it for $200,000. That's theft, Michael. That's stealing my equity." "It's not theft, we're family, and you're saving all those fees I mentioned. Realtor fees are $30,000, maybe $40,000 total with closing costs. You're trying to take $300,000 from me and calling it savings. Do you think I'm stupid? Do you think I can't do math?" Karen had moved to my kitchen now. She was photographing my appliances, the refrigerator I'd bought 3 years ago after saving for 6 months. The gas stove I'd researched for weeks before purchasing. She opened my pantry and started measuring the interior dimensions, documenting my canned goods and dry storage like it was evidence in a case. I walked over to her. My hands were shaking, but my voice was as firm as I could make it. "Leave my house. Right now, get out." She looked at Michael uncertainly, her professional smile faltering. "Should I?" "Keep working, Karen," Michael said, his voice taking on a hard edge. "Mom, let her finish her job. This is costing me money." "Her job? I didn't hire her. This is my house." "Get out." I pulled out my phone from my apron pocket. "What are you doing?" Michael asked, his eyes narrowing. "Calling the police." His face changed instantly. The casual smile disappeared, replaced by irritation and something that looked like panic. "Mom, don't be ridiculous. This is a family matter. You don't call the police on family. That's crazy. I was already dialing 911. Don't be dramatic." Michael moved toward me, reaching for my phone. "Give me that." I stepped back quickly, pulling away from him. "Don't touch me, Michael," the dispatcher answered. 911, what's your emergency? I need police at my home immediately. Someone is conducting an appraisal of my property without my permission and refusing to leave when I ask them to. Michael's face was turning red now. "Mom, hang up the phone right now." "You're embarrassing yourself?" I kept talking to the dispatcher, my voice shaking but clear. "My son brought an appraiser into my house without asking me. They're trying to pressure me into selling my house to him for far below market value. I've asked them to leave multiple times and they are refusing. What's your address, ma'am?" I gave it to her, keeping my eyes on Michael. "Are you in immediate danger right now?" "I don't believe so, but I want them out of my house." "They won't leave. Officers are being dispatched to your location. I'm going to stay on the line with you until they arrive. Are you safe right now? Can you get to a secure location?" "Yes, I'm in my kitchen." They are in the living room and dining room areas. Michael was pacing now, running his hands through his hair in agitation. "Mom, this is insane. We're trying to help you. You're being completely unreasonable about this. $200,000 is more money than you've probably ever had at one time. Help me by stealing $300,000. That's not help, Michael. That's theft. We're not stealing. We're offering you cash. Money you can use right now instead of having it tied up in bricks and mortar. I live in this house, Michael. It's my home. I've lived here for 42 years. I'm not selling it, and I'm certainly not selling it to you for less than half what it's worth." Karen had stopped working. She was quickly packing up her equipment, shoving the clipboard and measuring device into her bag, taking the camera from around her neck. She clearly realized this situation had gone very wrong. "Don't leave, Karen," Michael said sharply. "Just give her a minute to calm down. She gets confused sometimes." "Sir, I think I should go," Karen said nervously, moving toward the door. "No, I'm paying you $300 to do a job. Finish the goddamn appraisal." "Sir, if the homeowner is calling the police." "She's confused. She's elderly. She doesn't understand what we discussed. Just finish the job and you'll get paid." I was still on the phone with the dispatcher. He's yelling at me now, telling the appraiser to keep working even though I've asked multiple times for them to leave my property. "Officers are 2 minutes away, ma'am. I can hear sirens on your line now. Can you stay where you are safely?" I could hear them too. Sirens getting closer and closer to my house. Michael heard them as well. His face went pale, all the color drained out of it. "Mom, please don't do this. Just let us finish the appraisal. We can talk about this calmly afterward. I'll explain everything." "Get out of my house." "Mom, get out." "I want you out right now." The sirens were very loud now. I could see red and blue lights flashing through my front windows, reflecting off the glass. 2 police cars pulled up in front of my house with their lights still flashing. 4 officers got out, 2 from each car. I recognized the response from my years of living in this neighborhood. When someone calls 911 about an intruder, they send backup. They were taking this seriously. Michael immediately went outside to meet them before they even made it to my front door, trying to control the situation, trying to spin the narrative in his favor. "Officers, this is just a misunderstanding, a family matter. My mother is elderly and she's confused about what we discussed previously. She's not thinking clearly." One of the officers, a Latino man who looked to be in his 30s with a name tag that said Rodriguez, held up his hand to stop Michael's stream of words. "Sir, step back please. Let me talk to the homeowner first." I was standing in my doorway now, the dispatcher still on the phone. "Ma'am, the officers are there now," the dispatcher said calmly. "You can hang up if you feel safe. Thank you for your help." I hung up and looked at the officers standing on my front walk. A black woman in her 40s stepped forward, her hand resting on her belt near her radio. Her name tag said Thompson. "Ma'am, are you Alina Washington?" "Yes, officer, I'm the homeowner. This is my property. Can you tell us what's happening here today? I took a breath and kept my voice as steady as I could, even though I was shaking inside with adrenaline and fear and anger. My son walked into my house without knocking about 30 minutes ago. He brought this appraiser with him. I pointed to Karen, who was standing by her car in the driveway looking mortified and scared. They started appraising my house without my permission, without even asking me. My son told me he's buying my house for $200,000 when it's actually worth $500,000. When I told them to stop and leave my property, they refused. That's when I called you. Officer Thompson looked at Michael with sharp, evaluating eyes. Sir, is that accurate? Did you enter your mother's home without her permission? We're not pressuring her, Michael said, his voice rising defensively. We made her a completely fair offer. She's the one being unreasonable. She doesn't understand what a good deal this is. The male officer, Rodriguez, turned to Karen, who looked like she wanted to disappear into the ground. Ma'am, are you a licensed property appraiser? Yes, sir. Her voice was small. Did Mrs. Washington hire you to appraise this property? Karen looked at the ground, avoiding eye contact. Well, her son hired me. I didn't ask who hired you. I asked if Mrs. Washington, the property owner, hired you to conduct this appraisal. No, sir, but he told me. Did you verify with the property owner that she wanted an appraisal of her home? No, sir. He said his mother had agreed to sell the house to him and that they just needed an official appraisal for the paperwork to finalize the sale. But you never spoke to her directly to confirm any of this. No, sir. He said she was expecting me. He said she just got nervous about the whole thing and needed some reassurance, but that she'd agreed to everything. Officer Rodriguez turned back to Michael with a hard expression. Sir, do you own this property? My mother owns it, but we have a family arrangement. That's not what I asked. Do you personally own this property? Is your name on the deed? No, but, so you don't own it. No. Officer Thompson stepped in, her voice firm and professional. Ma'am, she said to Karen, did you get explicit permission from the property owner to enter this home and conduct an appraisal? Her son let me in. He had a key. He opened the door and said she was in the kitchen expecting us. That's not what I asked. Did the property owner, Mrs. Washington, give you permission to enter her home and photograph it and measure it? Karen's voice was barely a whisper now. No, ma'am. Then you're trespassing. You need to leave this property immediately. I didn't know, Karen said quickly, her words tumbling out in a rush as she grabbed her equipment bag from where she'd set it down. He told me his mother had agreed to sell. He showed me text messages where they'd supposedly discussed it. He said she was just nervous about making such a big decision and needed someone to walk her through it. I would never. I run a legitimate business. I have a license. I didn't know this wasn't authorized. I swear I didn't know. You need to leave now, ma'am. Right now. Karen practically ran to her car. She threw her equipment bag in the back seat with shaking hands, got in, and drove away without looking back. I could see her crying as she left. Officer Thompson turned to Michael. Sir, you also need to leave this property. This is my mother's house. I grew up here. I have a right to visit my own mother. Not if she's asking you to leave. Ma'am, Officer Thompson looked at me directly. Do you want your son to remain in your home? I looked at Michael. Really looked at him. This was my son. The baby I'd given birth to 52 years ago in Jefferson Hospital. The child I'd held when he had nightmares, fed when he was sick, helped with homework every night at this very dining room table. I taught him to ride a bike on the street, celebrated his first job, danced at his wedding, held his babies when they were born, and he was standing in my living room trying to steal $300,000 from me. No, I want him to leave my property immediately. Michael's face contorted with anger and disbelief. Mom, you're making a huge mistake. That $200,000 could really help you. You could live comfortably, travel, do whatever you want with that money. I already live comfortably. In my house, the house you're trying to steal from me. I'm not trying to steal it. I'm offering to buy it. That's completely different. Officer Rodriguez stepped closer to Michael, his hand moving to his belt. Sir, you need to leave this property now. If you refuse, we will arrest you for trespassing. Michael grabbed his jacket from where he'd thrown it over my couch when he first arrived. My couch. In my living room, in my house that he tried to appraise and document and take from me. Fine, but Mom, you're going to regret this decision. You're throwing away a good deal because you're being stubborn and paranoid. I'm being protective of my property. There's a difference. And Michael. Don't come back here. Oh, I won't. Don't worry about that. Enjoy being alone in this big house with no one to help you. See how you feel when you're 80 years old and can't manage anymore and no one wants anything to do with you because you pushed everyone away. He stormed toward the door, then turned back one more time. You're going to die alone in this house, Mom. And it'll be your own fault. He slammed the door so hard that one of my picture frames fell off the wall in the hallway. The glass shattered on the hardwood floor. A photo of Michael at age 8, smiling gap-toothed at the camera, now surrounded by broken glass. The officers stayed for another 20 minutes, taking my detailed statement. Officer Thompson gave me her card. Ma'am, what your son attempted today is a form of financial elder abuse. It's more common than people realize. You should contact an attorney as soon as possible and document everything that happened here. I will. Thank you, officer. And ma'am, you did the right thing calling us. A lot of people in your situation don't, because they feel guilty about involving police in family matters. But what he tried to do here, that's not a family matter. That's attempted fraud. After they left, I stood in my kitchen. The cookies had burned, all of them. The whole house smelled like burnt chocolate and scorched butter, acrid and bitter instead of sweet. I threw them away, batch by batch, dumping my grandmother's recipe into the trash because I'd been too busy fighting off my son's theft attempt to save them. I sat at my kitchen table and cried, not because I regretted calling the police. I didn't regret that at all. But because my own son, the baby I'd carried for 9 months, the child I'd loved unconditionally for 52 years, the young man I'd sacrificed so much for, had just tried to rob me. Not with a gun or a knife or threats of violence, but with paperwork and pressure and fake concern for my well-being and the assumption that I'd be too confused or too trusting or too desperate for his approval to understand what he was really doing. $300,000. That's what my son thought our relationship was worth. That's what he thought he could steal from me. That evening, after I'd cleaned up the burnt cookies and washed the flour off my hands and swept up the broken glass from the picture frame, I called my attorney. Robert Chen had been handling my legal affairs for over 15 years. He'd done my will when my husband died. He'd handled my power of attorney documents. He'd helped me with a property line dispute with my neighbor 5 years ago. He was in his mid-60s now, an Asian man with silver hair and wire-rimmed glasses, and a calm, methodical way of explaining complex legal concepts that always made me feel like I understood what was happening. Robert, I need your help. Something happened today and I don't know what to do. Eleanor, you sound upset. What's wrong? My son tried to force me to sell my house to him for $200,000. It's worth $500,000. There was a pause on the other end of the line. I could hear him shifting papers, getting ready to take notes. Tell me everything. Start from the very beginning and don't leave anything out. Every detail matters. I explained it all, Michael walking in without knocking, the appraiser I'd never met following behind him. The offer that was really a theft scheme, the refusal to leave when I asked, the police having to escort him out. When I finished, Robert was quiet for a long moment. I could hear him breathing on the other end of the line. Eleanor, what your son attempted today is called equity theft. It's a specific form of elder financial abuse. He's trying to use family pressure and fraudulent paperwork to steal approximately $300,000 of your home equity. Can he actually do that? Can he legally force me to sell? Not legally, no. You're a competent adult. You own the property. No one can force you to sell. But Eleanor, if he'd gotten you to sign papers, especially if he could later claim you were confused or that you'd agreed verbally and just forgot or that you have dementia, he might have succeeded. These schemes work because elderly homeowners often trust their children completely and don't realize they're being defrauded until it's too late and the paperwork is already filed. My hands felt cold holding the phone, so I was right to call the police. You were absolutely right. And Eleanor, we need to take this further. We need to document everything that happened and get legal protection in place immediately. What kind of protection? A restraining order, at minimum, and we need to make absolutely sure he has no access to your property or your legal documents. Does he have a key to your house? Yes, I gave him 1 year ago in case of emergencies, in case I fell or got sick or needed help. Change your locks tomorrow morning, first thing, before anything else. And a leaner, I'm going to give you the name of a colleague who specializes in elder real estate fraud. His name is Marcus Williams. He's handled dozens of cases like this. He can explain exactly what your son was attempting and help us build a legal case if we need it. Do you think we'll need a legal case? I think we need to be prepared for your son to try again. Men who are desperate enough to attempt this kind of fraud don't usually stop after one failed attempt. We need to protect you. Marcus Williams called me the next morning at 9 a.m. He had a deep, resonant voice that reminded me of my late husband. Professional but warm. He spent the first 5 minutes just asking me how I was doing, if I'd slept, if I felt safe in my home. Mrs. Washington, Robert explained what happened yesterday. I'm very sorry you're going through this. Before we talk about the legal aspects, I need to ask you something that might seem personal. Is your son in financial trouble? I thought about it, really thought about the past year of interactions with Michael. He's a real estate investor, or he calls himself that. He buys properties, fixes them up, sells them. But he's mentioned several times over the past year that some deals haven't worked out. He seemed stressed about money the last few times I saw him. He asked me in March if I could loan him $50,000 for a sure-thing investment. I said no. I see, that confirms what I suspected. He needs cash urgently. Your house has equity. He found a way to access it that would look legitimate on paper if he could get you to sign. Let me explain exactly what he was trying to do, step by step. Marcus walked me through the scheme patiently, breaking it down into pieces I could understand. Your house is worth approximately $500,000, correct? That's what I was told when I had it appraised 2 years ago by a legitimate appraiser I hired myself. Maybe a bit more now with how the market's been going up. Let's say it's worth $500,000. In a normal sale through a real estate agent, you'd pay about 6% in commission. On a $500,000 house, that's $30,000. Then you'd have closing costs, title insurance, transfer taxes, attorney fees if you hired one, various other fees. That would be another $10,000 to $15,000. So after all expenses, you'd net somewhere around $455,000 to $460,000. He paused to let that number sink in. Your son offered you $200,000. That's $255,000 to $260,000 less than you'd actually receive in a legitimate arm's-length sale to a stranger. He's not saving you money on fees. He's stealing your equity. But why bring an appraiser at all if he knew I hadn't agreed to sell? Because he needed to establish a paper trail that made this look legitimate if anyone questioned it later. The appraisal would show the house is worth $500,000. That's documented by a licensed professional. Then his offer of $200,000 would be documented in writing. If he could pressure you into signing the sales contract, maybe by claiming you'd already discussed it and agreed, maybe by suggesting you were confused and this was already decided. Maybe just by wearing you down over time until you gave in to keep the peace, he'd have legal documents showing you voluntarily sold him the house. Then, what would he do? Then he owns a $500,000 house that he paid $200,000 for. He has several options at that point. He could immediately turn around and list it with a real estate agent and sell it for full market value. That's a $300,000 profit after accounting for his selling costs. Or he could refinance it, take out a mortgage for $300,000 or $400,000, and pocket that cash while you get nothing. The equity that you and your husband built over 42 years of mortgage payments, all that wealth, would be in his bank account. I felt sick to my stomach. That's legal. If I had signed the papers, he could do all of that. If you voluntarily sign legal documents agreeing to sell your property for $200,000, yes, that becomes a binding contract. Even if you were pressured, confused, misled, or didn't fully understand what you were signing, once those papers are signed and notarized and filed with the county, it's extremely difficult to undo. The courts generally enforce contracts between competent adults, and at 76 with no diagnosis of dementia or cognitive impairment, you'd be presumed competent. That's why these schemes are so insidious, Mrs. Washington. The paperwork looks completely legitimate. You agreed to the sale. The buyer, your son, can claim it was a family arrangement, that you wanted to help him out financially, that you understood exactly what you were signing. So he almost stole $300,000 from me with nothing more than a pen and some paperwork. Exactly. And Mrs. Washington, I need to warn you about something very important. If your son was willing to attempt this once, he will almost certainly try again. Men who are desperate for money, and your son clearly is desperate, don't just give up after one failed attempt. They get more creative, more persistent, more aggressive. We need legal protection in place to prevent him from coming back and trying a different approach. Over the next week, Robert and Marcus helped me file for a restraining order against my own son. It felt surreal, wrong somehow, like I was betraying everything a mother should be, but Robert was gentle and firm. Eleanor, you're not betraying him. He betrayed you when he tried to steal from you. This restraining order is protection, not punishment. The petition laid out everything in precise legal language. The unauthorized entry into my home. The unauthorized appraisal conducted without my knowledge or consent. The attempted financial exploitation through a grossly below-market property sale. The refusal to leave when asked. The police report documenting all of it. The legal grounds were listed as attempted financial exploitation, trespassing, harassment, and elder abuse under Pennsylvania law. Robert explained what the restraining order would accomplish if granted. Eleanor, if the judge approves this, and I believe strongly that he will given the police report and the clear evidence of intent to defraud, Michael will be prohibited from several specific things. He cannot enter your property for any reason. He cannot contact you about selling your house or any other financial matters. He cannot access your financial information or accounts, and he must remain at least 500 feet away from you at all times. If he violates any of these terms, he can be arrested immediately. Will a judge actually grant this? He's my son. We're family. Don't I have to prove he's physically dangerous to get a restraining order? Not in Pennsylvania. Financial exploitation is recognized as a form of abuse. You don't need to prove he was physically threatening you or that you feared for your safety. You need to prove he was attempting to defraud you of a substantial sum of money, which we can absolutely prove with the police report, the appraiser's statement, and the simple math of his offer versus the actual market value. Judges in Philadelphia take elder financial abuse very seriously, especially when there's clear documentation like we have here. The court hearing was scheduled for the following Tuesday at 10 a.m. I barely slept the night before. I kept thinking about having to sit in a courtroom and publicly accuse my own son of trying to steal from me. Having to tell a judge that I needed legal protection from the child I'd raised. But I also kept thinking about that $300,000. About the house my husband and I had bought when Michael was 10 years old and our daughter Lisa was 8 and our son Kenneth was 6. About how we'd scrimped and saved to make the down payment. About the 30 years of mortgage payments, never missing one, even when money was tight. About the equity we'd built together, dollar by dollar, payment by payment. Michael had been willing to take all of that from me, without hesitation, without apparent guilt or shame. That made it easier to walk into the courtroom. The courtroom was smaller than I expected from watching legal dramas on television. Fluorescent lights humming overhead, plastic chairs for observers, a raised wooden bench where the judge would sit, American flag and Pennsylvania state flag flanking the bench. Michael was already there when I arrived with Robert. He was sitting with his attorney, a young white man in an expensive suit who looked fresh out of law school. The attorney was shuffling papers and whispering urgently to Michael, who sat there stone-faced. Michael wouldn't make eye contact with me. He stared straight ahead as I took my seat across the aisle. The bailiff called us to order. All rise for the Honorable Judge Patricia Henderson. The judge was an older black woman, maybe in her late 60s, with gray hair pulled back in a tight bun and sharp, intelligent eyes that missed nothing. She carried herself with the kind of authority that came from decades on the bench. She settled into her chair and picked up the file in front of her. Case number 20-4RO-8847, Alina Washington versus Michael Washington, petition for restraining order based on alleged financial exploitation and elder abuse. She read through the petition silently. It took about 5 minutes. The courtroom was completely quiet except for the rustling of papers and the hum of the fluorescent lights. I could hear my own heartbeat in my ears. Finally, Judge Henderson looked up. "Mrs. Washington, you're seeking a restraining order against your son, Michael Washington." "Is that correct?" "Yes, Your Honor." "This is a serious step. Tell me in your own words what happened. Take your time and be specific." I took a deep breath and told her everything. The Wednesday afternoon, baking cookies, Michael walking in without knocking. The stranger with the clipboard and camera. The measurements and photographs taken without my permission. The offer of $200,000 for a house worth $500,000. The refusal to leave when I asked. The police having to escort him out. Judge Henderson listened without interrupting, occasionally making notes on a legal pad beside the file. When I finished, she turned to Michael's attorney. "Counselor, your client is contesting this petition?" The young attorney stood up, smoothing his tie with nervous hands. "Yes, Your Honor." This is simply a family misunderstanding that's been blown out of proportion. Mr. Washington was attempting to help his elderly mother by offering to purchase her home and provide her with liquid assets for her retirement years. He believed, in good faith, that they had previously discussed this arrangement and that his mother had agreed in principle to the sale. There was no intent to defraud or exploit. He was genuinely trying to provide his mother with financial security and relieve her of the burden of maintaining a large property at her age. Judge Henderson looked at Michael with those sharp eyes. "Mr. Washington, please stand." Michael stood slowly. He looked smaller somehow than he had in my living room, less confident. His expensive clothes suddenly seemed like a costume. "Did your mother hire the appraiser who came to her home?" "No, Your Honor, but—" "Simple yes or no, please." "Did she hire the appraiser?" "No." "Did she give you permission to bring an appraiser to her home? We had talked in the past about her eventually downsizing." "Mr. Washington, that's not a yes." "Did she give you explicit permission to bring an appraiser to her home on that specific Wednesday?" Silence. "I'm waiting for an answer, Mr. Washington." "No, Your Honor." "Not specifically for that day." "Did she agree to sell you her house for $200,000? "I made her an offer that I thought was fair." "That's not what I asked." "Did she explicitly agree to sell you her house for $200,000? "Did she say, yes, I agree to sell you my house for that amount?" "She was considering the offer." "That's still not a yes, Mr. Washington. Did she agree or not?" "No, Your Honor, she didn't formally agree, but—" Judge Henderson made a note on her pad. "Mr. Washington, what is your mother's house currently worth on the open market?" "I'm not exactly sure of the precise. You hired an appraiser to determine that. What did you believe it was worth when you made your offer?" Michael shifted his weight uncomfortably. "Around $500,000. And you offered her $200,000? "Yes, Your Honor, but the reasoning behind that was to save her the substantial costs of—" Judge Henderson held up her hand to stop him. "Let me do some mathematics here, Mr. Washington. Real estate commission on a $500,000 house in Philadelphia would be approximately 6% of the sale price. That's $30,000. Closing costs including title insurance, transfer taxes, and various fees would be approximately $10,000 to $15,000. So in a standard arm's-length sale to an unrelated buyer, after all fees and costs, Mrs. Washington would net approximately $455,000 to $460,000. You offered her $200,000. That's a discrepancy of approximately $255,000 to $260,000. Can you explain that difference?" Michael's attorney jumped in. "Your Honor, it was a family arrangement. Mrs. Washington would have the benefit of a quick sale with no contingencies, no need for repairs or improvements, no uncertainty about whether a buyer would qualify for financing." Counselor. Those benefits might reasonably account for a discount of perhaps $20,000 or $30,000 for the convenience and certainty. They do not account for a discount of $255,000. This appears to be attempted theft of equity disguised as a family transaction. She turned back to Michael. Mr. Washington, when your mother asked you and the appraiser to leave her home, what did you do? I tried to explain to her why this was a good arrangement. Did you leave when she asked you to? No, Your Honor, not immediately. I thought if I could just help her understand the benefits. So you refused to leave when the property owner requested that you vacate her home? I was trying to. Yes or no, Mr. Washington? Did you refuse to leave? Yes, but... And the police had to be called to remove you from the property? Yes, Your Honor. Judge Henderson reviewed the police report in front of her, reading Officer Thompson's detailed account and Officer Rodriguez's corroborating statement. She read the statement from Karen the appraiser, admitting she'd never gotten permission directly from me and had relied entirely on Michael's word that I'd agreed to the appraisal. The judge read for several minutes, her expression becoming graver with each page. Finally, Judge Henderson looked up at me. Mrs. Washington, do you have any concerns that your son will attempt this again if I don't grant this order? Yes, Your Honor. He seemed very determined. He's mentioned being in financial trouble. I don't think he's going to just accept my refusal. She looked at Michael. Mr. Washington, this appears to be an extremely clear case of attempted financial exploitation of an elderly parent. You entered her home without explicit permission. You brought a professional appraiser to document her property without her knowledge or consent. You attempted to pressure her into selling her property for approximately 50% of its market value, representing a loss to her of over $250,000. When she refused and asked you to leave her home, you refused to comply until police forced you to leave. Michael's attorney tried to interrupt. Your Honor, my client had no malicious intent. He genuinely believed. Counselor, intent is not the central issue when the action itself is so clearly harmful. Whether your client intended to defraud his mother or simply didn't care that he was defrauding her because he needed the money, the result is the same. He attempted to deprive an elderly woman of $255,000 of her home equity. She picked up her pen and signed the order with firm, decisive strokes. Restraining order granted. Mr. Washington. You are hereby prohibited from the following: entering your mother's property for any reason, contacting her regarding the sale of her property or any other financial matters, accessing her financial information or accounts, and you must remain at least 500 feet away from her at all times. Unless you encounter her accidentally in a public place, in which case you must immediately leave that location. This order is effective immediately and will remain in place for a period of 2 years. Violation of this order will result in immediate arrest and criminal charges. Do you understand these terms? Yes, Your Honor. I'm also ordering you to return any keys you have to your mother's property within 48 hours. You will deliver them to her attorney, Mr. Chen, not to her directly, in order to avoid any violation of the contact restrictions. Do you understand? Yes, Your Honor. Mrs. Washington, I'm also going to suggest you change your locks regardless of whether he returns the keys. You can't be certain he didn't make copies. Protect yourself. I will, Your Honor. Thank you. I walked out of that courtroom feeling a strange mixture of relief, sadness, and victory. I'd won. I was protected by a court order, but I'd had to get a restraining order against my own son, the baby I'd rocked to sleep when he had colic. The toddler who'd held my hand crossing the street, the child I'd cheered for at Little League games and school concerts, the teenager I'd stayed up late worrying about, the young man I'd been so proud of when he graduated college and started his first business. That person was gone. Or maybe, and this was the thought that hurt most, maybe he'd never existed. Maybe I'd been seeing the son I wanted to have instead of the son I actually had. The person who remained was someone willing to steal $300,000 from his own mother and not lose sleep over it. 2 weeks after the restraining order was granted, I was going through my daily mail at my kitchen table when I found an envelope from a law office I didn't recognize. The return address was from Center City, Philadelphia. Blackstone and Associates, attorneys at law. I'd never heard of them. I opened it carefully, using my letter opener. Inside were property sale documents, legal papers, professional letterhead, everything looking official and legitimate. Purchase and sale agreement, seller. Elena Washington, property address. My address, buyer. Michael Washington, purchase price. $200,000, multiple pages of dense legal language about terms and conditions and contingencies and closing dates. And sticky notes with arrows pointing to signature lines. Sign here, date here, initial here, paperclip to the front was a handwritten note. I recognized Michael's handwriting immediately, the same handwriting from birthday cards and Mother's Day notes and grocery lists when he still lived at home. Mom, I know you're upset. I know the court hearing was difficult and probably embarrassing. But I need you to understand, this is truly the best option for both of us. I've had my attorney draw up proper legal paperwork. Everything is completely legitimate and official now. All the terms are clearly spelled out. Just sign where the arrows point and we can close in 2 weeks. You'll have $200,000 in your bank account. Cash that you can use however you want. You can travel. You can enjoy your retirement. You don't need to worry about house maintenance or property taxes or any of that anymore. And I can finally get my real estate business back on track and stop worrying about losing everything I've built. This is a win-win situation, Mom. Please just sign the papers and send them back to me in the pre-addressed stamped envelope I included. We don't need to make this more complicated than it needs to be. Love always, Michael. My hands were shaking so hard I almost dropped the papers. He'd done it again, even with a restraining order. Even after a judge explicitly told him not to contact me about selling my property. Even after being warned that violation could result in arrest. He'd sent me legal documents pressuring me to sign over my house, with a note that sounded caring on the surface but was really just more manipulation. Love always, like this was normal. Like trying to steal from your mother was an act of love. I called Robert immediately, my voice shaking with anger and betrayal. He sent me property sale papers, with a handwritten note telling me to sign them and send them back. Elena, that's a direct and explicit violation of the restraining order. He's prohibited from contacting you about property sales. Period. This is contempt of court. What do? Save everything. Don't touch the documents except to put them in a safe place where they won't get damaged. Don't respond to him in any way. I'm filing a contempt motion today. There will be a hearing. Elena, this is very serious. Judge Henderson specifically warned him. Violating a restraining order can result in jail time. Jail? Yes, the court takes these orders seriously. When someone violates them, especially this blatantly, there are consequences, real consequences. The contempt hearing was scheduled for the following Tuesday. Same courtroom, same judge. But this time, Michael looked worried. The casual confidence was gone. He looked like a man who just realized he'd made a terrible mistake. Judge Henderson had the envelope in front of her, the sale papers, the note in Michael's handwriting. She'd clearly read everything before we arrived. Her expression was not pleased. Mr. Washington, did you send these documents to your mother? Michael's attorney stood quickly. Your Honor, my client believed that if he went through proper legal channels, if the communication was purely business-related with official paperwork prepared by an attorney. I asked Mr. Washington, not you. Mr. Washington, did you personally send these documents to your mother's home address? Michael stood slowly. Yes, Your Honor. Did you include this handwritten note? She held up the paper with Michael's writing. Yes, Your Honor. Can you read the restraining order from our previous hearing? Specifically the section about contacting your mother regarding property sales. Your Honor, I thought if I went through an attorney, if it was legitimate legal paperwork, instead of just me calling her or showing up. Mr. Washington, the order says you cannot contact your mother about selling her property. Period. It doesn't say unless you use a lawyer. It doesn't say unless the paperwork looks official. It doesn't say unless you really think you have a good reason. It says you cannot contact her about this subject at all. And you did anyway. Why did you violate a court order? Because she needs to understand this is a good deal for her. She's being stubborn and irrational. Judge Henderson's voice got sharp and hard. Mr. Washington, it is not your place to decide what's good for your mother. She's a competent adult woman. She worked for the United States Postal Service for 30 years. She's managed her own finances, her own home, and her own life independently for 9 years since her husband died. She clearly understood exactly what you were attempting to do, and she refused because your deal would cost her over $250,000. That's not stubbornness. That's good judgment and self-protection. But Your Honor, she's being unreasonable about, Mr. Washington, your mother has made her decision. You need to respect it. The law requires you to respect it. She looked at the documents in front of her, shaking her head slightly. This is your first violation of the restraining order. I'm going to impose a fine of $1,000. You have 30 days to pay it to the court. If you contact your mother again about this property, if you send her one more letter, one more email, if you approach her in person, if you send someone else to contact her on your behalf, you will be arrested immediately and you will serve jail time. Do you understand? Yes, Your Honor. I'm also extending the restraining order from 2 years to 5 years. You've demonstrated that you cannot be trusted to follow court orders. Perhaps 5 years will give you sufficient time to understand what the word no means. Michael's face went pale. 5 years, and Mr. Washington, if you violate this order again, if I see you in my courtroom one more time for this, you won't be going home afterward. You'll be going to county jail. Am I making myself clear? Yes, Your Honor. I walked out of that courtroom thinking surely this would be the end of it. $1,000 fine, the threat of jail, 5 years of restrictions. Surely that would make him stop, but I was wrong again. 1 month later, on a Thursday afternoon, I was at the grocery store loading bags into the trunk of my car when I heard a voice behind me. Mom, please, we need to talk. I turned around sharply. Michael was standing about 15 feet away, holding a manila folder in his hands. My heart started racing. This was a violation. He was supposed to stay 500 feet away from me. You're violating the restraining order. You need to leave right now. Just listen to me for 2 minutes. Please, I brought the final paperwork. If you just sign it now, we can close next week and you'll have your money, $200,000. Think about what you could do with that. He took a step closer, holding out the folder. Stay away from me, Michael. Mom, you're being unreasonable about this. This is a good deal. Why can't you see that? It's a $255,000 theft. That's not a deal. Another step closer. He was maybe 10 feet away now, directly violating the court order. Why are you being so stubborn? You're going to regret this when you're older and you need money for medical care or a nursing home. I got into my car quickly and locked all the doors. Michael approached my driver's side window, still holding that folder, pressing it against the glass. Just look at the papers. Just read them. It's all legitimate. My lawyer prepared everything. I pulled out my phone with shaking hands and called 911. This is Eleanor Washington. I have a restraining order against my son Michael Washington, case number 24RO8847. He's currently violating it. He's at the Acme grocery store parking lot on Broad Street, standing outside my car refusing to leave. I could see Michael's face change as he heard me on the phone. The pleading expression shifted to fear, then anger. He backed away from my car quickly. Mom, you don't need to call the police. He has legal documents he's trying to force me to sign. Papers to sell him my house even though the court ordered him not to contact me about this. Officers are being dispatched, ma'am. Can you stay in your locked car safely? Yes, I'm locked in. He's backing away now. Michael was walking quickly toward his own car, parked 3 rows away. Do not let him leave if possible, ma'am. Officers are 2 minutes away. He's getting in his car. Michael's car started. But before he could back out of his parking space, 2 police cars entered the parking lot with lights flashing. They blocked him in. Officers got out and approached Michael's car. I watched through my windshield as they spoke to him, then asked him to step out of the vehicle. He was arrested right there in the Acme parking lot. Handcuffs, Miranda rights, the whole procedure. One of the officers came over to take my statement while another stayed with Michael. Ma'am, you're Alina Washington? Yes, officer. And you have an active restraining order against Michael Washington? Yes. It was extended to 5 years just last month after he violated it the first time. What happened here today? I explained everything. Michael appearing while I was loading groceries. The folder with property sale documents. Him approaching within 10 feet when he was supposed to stay 500 feet away. Refusing to leave when I told him to. The officer took detailed notes. We're arresting him for violation of a restraining order. This will be his second violation, which means it's a criminal matter now, not just contempt of court. He'll be charged, and there will be a court date. Thank you, officer. I watched as they put Michael in the back of the police car. He was crying. I could see tears running down his face through the car window. I felt nothing. No pity, no guilt, no sadness. Just relief that maybe, finally, he would stop. The criminal court hearing was 3 weeks later. This time it wasn't Judge Henderson. This was criminal court, not civil. A different judge. A man named Morrison, white, in his 60s, with a reputation for being tough on repeat offenders. The prosecutor laid out the case. First restraining order. First violation with the mailed documents. $1,000 fine and extension to 5 years. Second violation in the parking lot, approaching within 10 feet despite clear orders to stay 500 feet away. Michael's attorney tried to argue it was a chance encounter. The prosecutor pulled out the folder Michael had been carrying. Property sale documents, pre-filled with my information. This wasn't a chance encounter, Your Honor. The defendant came prepared with legal documents specifically to pressure the victim into signing over her property. He knew exactly what he was doing. Judge Morrison looked at Michael with no sympathy. Mr. Washington, I've read the file. You attempted to defraud your mother of approximately $250,000. When that failed, you were given a restraining order. You violated it by sending her documents. You were fined and warned. You violated it again by approaching her in a parking lot with more documents. You seem to believe you're above the law because this involves family. You're not. He looked at the sentencing guidelines. For a second violation of a restraining order involving continued harassment and attempted financial exploitation of an elderly victim, I'm sentencing you to 30 days in county jail. You'll also pay restitution for Mrs. Washington's legal fees related to these violations. That's $4,500. The restraining order remains in effect for the full 5 years. After you serve your sentence, if you contact your mother in any way, the next sentence will be 6 months. Do you understand? Yes, Your Honor. Michael was taken into custody immediately, 30 days in county jail. I watched them lead him away in handcuffs, my son, in an orange jumpsuit, being led to a cell, and I still felt nothing but relief. While Michael was in jail, I did some investigating into his financial situation. I needed to understand why he'd been so desperate. I called his ex-wife, Sharon. They'd divorced 2 years ago after 25 years of marriage. We'd always gotten along well, even after the divorce. Alina, I'm so sorry about everything Michael put you through. I saw the news about his arrest. I wish I could say I was surprised, but I'm really not. Sharon, do you know what kind of financial trouble he's in? She sighed heavily. His real estate business has been failing for over 2 years now. He made some terrible investment decisions right before the market shifted. He bought 3 properties at the peak, paid way too much for them, planning to flip them quickly. But then the market softened, and he got stuck with them. He couldn't sell them for what he paid. He couldn't rent them for enough to cover the mortgages. Everything started going into foreclosure. How much does he owe? Last I knew, which was about 6 months ago when we were finalizing some financial details of the divorce, he was over $400,000 in debt, 3 mortgages in foreclosure, multiple credit cards maxed out, personal loans from investors he can't pay back. He's being sued by at least 2 different lenders that I know of. $400,000. At least, maybe more by now. Alina, he was drowning. That's why I divorced him. He started making increasingly desperate and unethical decisions to try to save the business. I couldn't be part of it anymore. After talking to Sharon, I searched court records online. I found multiple lawsuits against Michael's Real Estate LLC. Foreclosure proceedings on 3 properties. Judgments totaling over $350,000. Liens on properties he owned. My son was financially destroyed, and he'd seen my house, my $455,000 in equity, as his salvation. He'd been willing to steal from his own mother to save himself from the consequences of his own bad decisions. While Michael was still in jail, my daughter Lisa called me for the first time in 2 months. "Mom, I heard Michael was arrested. Is that true?" "Yes, he violated the restraining order twice. He's serving 30 days. "Mom, how could you? He's your son." "He's in jail because of you." I kept my voice calm. "He's in jail because he repeatedly violated a court order after trying to steal $250,000 from me. He wasn't trying to steal from you. He was offering you money." "Lisa, he offered me $200,000 for a house worth $500,000. Even after realtor fees and closing costs, I should net $455,000 in a normal sale. He was trying to take $255,000 from me." "That's theft, but he's family. Family helps family. You're supposed to help him when he's in trouble. Help him by letting him steal from me? That's not help, Lisa. His business is falling apart. He's losing everything. And you couldn't just sign some papers to help him. Those papers would have cost me $255,000. Would you give him $255,000 of your money?" Silence on the other end. "I didn't think so." "And Lisa, he's not in jail because I called the police. He's in jail because he violated a restraining order twice after a judge explicitly warned him not to. Those were his choices. You're destroying this family, Mom. I'm protecting myself from financial abuse. If you see that as destroying the family, then maybe you need to think about what family actually means." She hung up on me. My son Kenneth called the next day. He was 50, my middle child, usually the peacemaker. "Mom, I talked to Lisa. She's really upset about Michael being in jail. I imagine Michael is upset about it too. Mom, I understand you were angry about what happened, but jail seems extreme. He made a mistake." "Kenneth, he didn't make a mistake. He made a series of deliberate choices. He walked into my house with an appraiser without asking me. He tried to pressure me into selling my house for half its value. When I got a restraining order, he violated it by mailing me documents. When he was fined and warned, he violated it again by approaching me in a parking lot. Each of those was a choice, not a mistake. But he's desperate. His business is failing. He's drowning in debt. Can't you have some compassion?" "I have compassion for him. I'm sorry his business failed. But Kenneth, his financial problems don't give him the right to steal from me. If you were $400,000 in debt, would you expect me to give you $250,000 to bail you out? That's different. How is it different? I wouldn't ask you for money. But if you did, if you tried to take it from me without asking, would you expect me to just let you?" Silence. "Kenneth, I love Michael. He's my son and I always will love him. But love doesn't mean letting someone steal from me. It doesn't mean sacrificing my financial security to enable his bad decisions. So you're really okay with him being in jail?" "I'm okay with him facing consequences for his actions. Maybe 30 days in jail will teach him that no means no." Kenneth and I ended the call on better terms than Lisa and I had, but I could tell he thought I was being too harsh. Only my sister Joyce understood. "Eleanor, you did the right thing. He tried to rob you and then wouldn't take no for an answer. Some people need to hit rock bottom before they learn. Maybe jail is his rock bottom." "I hope so, Joyce. I really do." Michael was released from jail after serving his full 30 days. No early release for good behavior, the full sentence. Within a week of his release, my phone rang from a number I didn't recognize. I answered cautiously. "Mom, it's Michael." I hung up immediately. He called back. I didn't answer. A letter arrived 2 days later, sent through his attorney to technically avoid violating the restraining order's prohibition on direct contact. "Dear Mom, I know you probably don't want to hear from me. I know you're angry and you have every right to be. 30 days in jail gave me a lot of time to think about what I did, about what I tried to do to you. I was desperate. My business was failing. I was drowning in debt. I saw your house, and all I could think about was how selling it could solve all my problems. I didn't think about what it would cost you. I didn't think about how wrong it was to try to pressure you into something you clearly didn't want. I was so focused on saving my business that I forgot you're my mother, not a solution to my financial problems. I'm sorry. I know that word doesn't fix anything. I know it doesn't give you back the peace of mind I took from you, but I am genuinely sorry. I'm not asking you to forgive me. I don't expect that. I just wanted you to know that I understand now what I did wrong. I hope someday you can find peace with what happened. Your son, Michael, I read the letter 3 times. It sounded sincere, remorseful, like maybe he actually understood. But sorry wasn't enough. Sorry didn't erase the fear I'd felt when he walked into my house with that appraiser. Sorry didn't give me back the security I'd lost knowing my own son would steal from me. Sorry didn't undo the restraining order or the court appearances or the 30 days I'd spent wondering if he'd try again. I put the letter in a drawer and didn't respond. 2 months later, around the holidays, there was a knock on my door. I looked through the peephole carefully. My granddaughter Jasmine, Michael's daughter, 22 years old in her senior year of college. I opened the door. "Jasmine, sweetheart, this is a surprise." "Hi, Grandma." "Can I come in?" We sat in my living room, the same room where it had all started. Jasmine looked nervous, fidgeting with her phone. "Grandma, Dad asked me to talk to you." My heart sank. "Jasmine, I don't want you in the middle of this." "I know, but please just hear me out." "He's really changed, Grandma. Jail was really hard on him. He lost his business. He lost almost everything. He's living with a friend now, working at Home Depot. He's trying to rebuild his life from nothing." "I'm sorry he's struggling. I really am." "He wants to apologize in person." "He wants to try to repair your relationship. Can he come visit you?" "No, he's prohibited by the restraining order." "Can you drop the restraining order?" "No, Grandma, please. He's your son. He made a terrible mistake, but people deserve second chances." "Jasmine, he didn't make one mistake. He made a series of choices over several months. He tried to steal $250,000 from me. When I stopped him, he violated a court order. When he was warned and fined, he violated it again. Those aren't mistakes. Those are deliberate actions showing he didn't respect me, my property, or the law. But he's really sorry now? I'm sure he is. I'm sure jail was unpleasant and losing everything was hard. But Jasmine, being sorry after you face consequences isn't the same as being sorry for what you did. If he'd been caught and had never faced consequences, would he be sorry? Or would he have kept trying? She had no answer for that. "Jasmine, I love your father. He's my son and that will never change. But I don't trust him anymore. And I can't let him back into my life knowing what he's capable of. But he's your son. Doesn't that mean anything? It means I'll always love him. But it doesn't mean I have to give him access to my life or my property. Love and trust are different things. I love him, but I don't trust him. And I probably never will again." Jasmine left in tears. I felt terrible, but I didn't change my mind. 2 years passed. I was 78 years old now, still in my house, still managing on my own. The house was worth about $550,000 now. The market had continued to rise. The equity Michael had tried to steal had grown even larger. Michael had tried once more to reach out, about 18 months after his release from jail. He sent another message through Lisa. "Mom, Michael is asking if you'd reconsider the restraining order. He says he's been working steadily, paying off his debts, going to therapy. He wants a chance to rebuild your relationship." The answer is no, Lisa. The restraining order has 3 more years to run. I'm not lifting it. "Mom, you're being cruel. He's trying to change his life." Good for him. But that doesn't obligate me to let him back into mine. "So you're just going to stay angry forever?" "I'm not angry, Lisa. I'm protective. There's a difference. I'm protecting myself from someone who tried to steal from me and wouldn't take no for an answer." Lisa stopped calling after that. Our relationship was damaged, maybe beyond repair. Kenneth still called occasionally. We'd managed to maintain a cordial relationship, though we avoided discussing Michael. But most of the family had sided with Michael. I was the villain in their story, the cruel mother who sent her son to jail and refused to forgive him. Only my sister Joyce and a few close friends understood what I'd been through. I also started volunteering at the senior center, teaching a class about financial exploitation and property fraud. sharing my story to help others recognize the warning signs. My son tried to buy my $500,000 house for $200,000, I told a room full of seniors. He brought an appraiser to my home without asking. When I refused, he violated restraining orders twice, trying to force me to sign papers. He went to jail for it. The rooms were always full, 30 or 40 seniors, many of them facing similar pressure from family members. "What did you do?" one woman asked, her voice shaking. "I protected myself. I called the police immediately. I got a lawyer. I got a restraining order. When he violated it, I didn't back down. I pressed charges, and I changed my will. The house he wanted so badly, it's going to a housing charity when I die. He'll never own it." After class, people thanked me. "You showed us it's okay to say no to family. You gave me courage to protect my property. I thought I was being mean for not wanting to sell my house to my daughter cheap. Now I understand it's self-protection." Teaching these classes, helping others avoid the trap I'd almost fallen into, made everything feel worthwhile. Present day, I'm 79 years old now. 3 years since Michael walked into my house with that appraiser, I'm still here, still in my house, still managing my own life independently. The house is now worth about $575,000. Real estate in Philadelphia has been strong. Michael is still prohibited from contacting me. The restraining order has 2 more years to run. I've heard through extended family that he's still working at Home Depot, that he's been slowly paying off his debts, that he's given up on real estate investing, that he's in therapy dealing with what one cousin called his money issues. I'm glad he's getting help. I genuinely am, but that doesn't mean I'm letting him back into my life. My friend Dorothy visited yesterday for tea. We've been friends for 30 years since our children were in school together. "Eleanor, do you ever regret how you handled things with Michael? It's been 3 years. Do you ever wish you'd been more forgiving?" I thought about it honestly. "No, Dorothy. I don't regret protecting myself from theft. I don't regret calling the police when someone was trying to defraud me. I don't regret the restraining order when someone wouldn't respect my boundaries. And I don't regret refusing to drop charges when someone violated court orders twice. But he's your son. Don't you miss him?" I miss who I thought he was. I don't miss who he actually is, someone who saw me as a source of money to solve his problems. Someone who was willing to steal from me and then wouldn't accept my refusal. What if he really has changed? Then he's learned a valuable lesson about respecting other people's boundaries and property. But that doesn't mean I owe him forgiveness or access to my life. He showed me who he is when he thinks he can get away with something. I believed him. That seems harsh. It seems protective. Dorothy, would you give someone who tried to steal $250,000 from you a second chance? Would you let them back into your house, into your life, with access to your property and finances? She was quiet for a long moment. "No, I suppose I wouldn't." "Then you understand why I won't either." I've also updated my will again with Robert's help. Michael is still completely excluded, with explicit language explaining why. My son Michael Washington is excluded from any inheritance due to his multiple attempts to defraud me of my property in 2024, including unauthorized appraisal of my home, attempted below-market purchase that would have cost me approximately $255,000 in lost equity, 2 violations of restraining orders, and serving jail time for criminal harassment related to his attempts to force me to sell my property to him against my will. This is a deliberate choice, not an oversight. Lisa and Kenneth each still inherit their shares of my other assets, my savings, my retirement accounts, my life insurance. But the house, the thing Michael wanted so badly, goes to Habitat for Humanity Philadelphia. My property located at my address is to be sold upon my death. 100% of the proceeds from this sale are to be donated to Habitat for Humanity Philadelphia to be used for building affordable housing for families in need. Under no circumstances is Michael Washington to purchase, inhabit, or benefit from this property in any way. Robert had asked if I was certain about that provision. Very certain. The house he tried to steal will help build homes for people who actually need them, not line the pockets of someone who tried to rob his mother. It's your property, Alina. You have every right to leave it to whomever you choose. And I choose to make sure Michael never benefits from it. Ever. This morning, I was in my living room reading when there was a knock on my door. I looked through the peephole carefully. Michael, standing on my porch, hands in his pockets, looking uncertain and older than his 55 years. I didn't open the door. Mom, I know you're there. Please. Can we just talk for a minute? I spoke through the closed door. You're violating the restraining order by being here. I know, I needed to see you. It's been 3 years, Mom. I've changed. I've been in therapy. I'm paying off my debts. I'm trying to make things right. The restraining order says you can't be here. Leave. Please, Mom, I miss you. I miss talking to you. I miss Sunday dinners and holiday gatherings and just being your son. You should have thought about that before you tried to steal from me. I wasn't trying to steal. I was desperate and I made bad choices, but I wasn't trying to hurt you. You were trying to take $255,000 from me without my consent. That's theft, Michael. That's stealing. The fact that you convinced yourself it was something else doesn't change what it was. Can't you forgive me? It's been 3 years, I went to jail, I lost everything. Haven't I paid enough? Forgiveness and trust are different things, Michael. I forgave you a long time ago. I'm not angry anymore. I don't wish you harm, but forgiveness doesn't mean letting you back into my life. It doesn't mean giving you access to my property or my finances. It doesn't mean pretending this didn't happen. So that's it? Forever. I'm just cut off from my mother forever because I made a mistake when I was desperate. You're cut off because you tried to steal from me, violated court orders, went to jail, and I can never trust you again. Those are consequences of your choices, not my cruelty. What about when you die? Am I in the will? No, I could hear his sharp intake of breath through the door. You cut me out completely? Yes. What happens to the house? It's going to Habitat for Humanity. They'll sell it and use the money to build homes for families who need them. You're giving my inheritance to charity. It was never your inheritance, Michael. It was my property. And yes, I'm giving it to people who will use it to help others instead of to someone who tried to steal it from me. That's not fair. What's not fair is trying to take someone's house for half its value. What's not fair is violating restraining orders. What's not fair is refusing to accept that no means no. Goodbye, Michael. If you're still here in 2 minutes, I'm calling the police. I heard him standing there for a long moment, then footsteps walking away, his car door opening and closing, the engine starting. He drove away. I watched through my window to make sure he was really gone, then I called Robert. He came to my house in violation of the restraining order. That's his 3rd violation, Alina. Do you want to press charges? I thought about it, really thought about it. No, not this time, but document it. If he comes back, if he tries to contact me again, then yes. But this time, maybe he needed to try one more time to hear me say no. Are you sure? I'm sure. But Robert, make absolutely certain the will is ironclad. Make sure there's no way he can contest it or claim he deserves the house or any of it. It's already as clear as I can make it, Alina, but I'll review it again and make sure every base is covered. I'm sitting in my living room now, the same room where this all started 3 years ago, looking around at my home, the house I've lived in for 42 years, the place where I raised my children and mourned my husband and built my life, the house Michael tried to take from me. I have no regrets about how I handled it. Some people will always think I was too harsh, too unforgiving, that I should have let family pressure and guilt override my self-protection. But those people don't understand what it's like to have your own child try to rob you. They don't understand the violation, the betrayal, the sickening realization that someone you love and raised and sacrificed foresees you as nothing more than a source of money to exploit. I protected myself. I called the police. I got legal protection. I pressed charges when those protections were violated. I cut off contact to prevent further attempts. And I changed my will to make sure the thing he wanted most, this house, this equity, would never be his. Because being someone's mother doesn't mean letting them steal from you. Family doesn't excuse fraud. And forgiveness doesn't mean giving someone unlimited chances to hurt you. My son walked into my house with an appraiser and announced he was buying my $500,000 house for $200,000. When I refused, he violated restraining orders twice, trying to force me to sign papers. He went to jail for 30 days. 3 years later, I'm still in my house, now worth $575,000. And when I die, it's all going to charity. Every penny of it will help build homes for families who actually need them. Not to a son who tried to rob his mother. He'll never own this house. He'll never benefit from my equity because he tried to steal it. And I don't reward theft, even when the thief is my son. I'm Alina Washington. I'm 79 years old, retired postal worker, widow, homeowner, and I'm living proof that you can protect yourself from family exploitation and thrive. My house, my equity, my decision, my peace. Nobody takes that from me. Not my son, not guilt, not family pressure. Nobody.